All right, Sam. As you know, I am left-handed,
Hmm.
and but if you put me up against a mirror, I would be all right, all right, all right.
Good one. I like it. It's to the point and simple. Yeah, I like it.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend of Ben.
And I'm your other host, East Coast Sam.
And here we are covering what we like to call the Survivor Samoa year of the main event, the 2016 World Series of Poker main event covered by ESPN. Over a total of 16 episodes. We'll be covering episodes 1 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular main event is kind of the end of an era of sorts, but also the true start of a new era.
Yeah.
This is the final year that they did the November 9.
Right.
And this was the last year of ESPN doing this sort of episodic main event coverage prior to the final table.
Right.
Because about the number 9, obviously you have to mix things up a little bit, but then it's also kind of the start of 2015 kind of had a bit of it, but this is kind of the table talk era of the main event of sorts. Not particularly long era, but this is definitely the peak of that trend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is the first full year that I watched for the first time. I watched the final table for 2015, so I saw all this as it came out. This is sort of my first nostalgic look back. And Ben and we were talking before about this, and you mentioned how you thought that you were going to hate everyone you loved when you saw it for the first time and love everyone you hated. And I kind of sort of agree with you. There are some people whose opinions definitely changed. Some stayed the same. This is going to be a really interesting one to tackle just because it's not just table talk heavy. It pretty much just is table talk. There are some good plays that we'll get into, and we'll get into the final table next time and really talk about a couple players there who I think shone. But yeah, it's so personality and table talk heavy that it really just consumes the entire coverage.
And it's a shame in a few ways because there's some pretty good featured tables on display.
Yeah.
Even just episodes 1 and 2 has a pretty stacked table, maybe not chip-wise, but also personality-wise as well. And obviously, it just seems like that some of the magic of the main event was lost in this version of it. And again, a lot of changes, both subtle, overt, and both from a television point of view, the actual tournament changed pretty substantially as well, and just a lot of things to discuss here for this podcast. So first and foremost, 2016, this was compared to 2015, a slight increase in the main event size, 6,737 players. The next couple of main events would continue a gradual increase, a couple hundred players each, until reaching a peak in 2019. Again, keeping the top 15% of the field cashing, that amounted to 1,011 players. And but because of the slightly increased number of players, even though the payouts are going to more players, the numbers are slightly higher towards the final table payouts. Mm-hmm. So it's, again, a bit more impressive in that respect. Once again, 3-day ones. And then otherwise, it's pretty different on sort of the subtle changes in the broadcast.
Yeah, we still have the, trio of Lon, Norm, and Kara Scott. Kara Scott's, giving sort of an interview with a player every single episode. I noticed some sort of changes in the graphics here and there as well, little things. Probably the biggest in terms of a graphical change is a new intro sequence where we have this. I actually like the intro sequence a lot. This sort of like sweeping shot through what's supposed to be Las Vegas, and you see photographs of different main event champions over the years pop up while a song plays. I think it's a pretty good way to sort of remind people of the history of WSOP and sort of bring momentum into the episode.
Yeah, there'd usually be about a 45-second introduction for that episode, sometimes narrated by a player, particularly regarding maybe what junction of the main event they were at in that episode, and then it would feed into the song Giants. Again, probably my second favorite song of the songs that they've used for the main event, first of being in my life. Another big graphical change was literally showing the chips behind post flop in a hand. We mentioned before how we really liked having that distinction, so you can kind of tell. And then also that number would go red if the chips behind drop below the 20 big blind mark, which is kind of the informal red zone of poker,
Right.
also for television. And unlike the year prior, Table 2 does return because they had built a brand new stage in the Amazon room.
Mm-hmm.
So you have room for two kind of tables, sort of, again, it's very similar to the setup nowadays. You have two semi-featured tables. They're not really numbered, like you had table 1 and table 2. So I refer to them as table 2 and table B.
Yeah.
And those tables are used, but not as much as you might think. Like sometimes maybe one hand each, and even then the hands shown aren't always all that all amazing. Usually it's just meant to spotlight maybe a player at that table who might appear later in the broadcast. So it's kind of just table setting for for down the line. Other changes to the main event, the starting stack increased from the 30K to 50K, which just meant you have just a higher number of chips in play. So the actual chip stacks, if you were just to look at like the chip stacks of the final table and compare it to years past, you might notice that the number of chips is drastically higher, and that is reflected in that. So naturally, blind structure tweaked a bit. The actual level the tournament would conclude on will be a much higher blind level than years past. So just little things like that affecting the action. That the higher chip nominations are also introduced a little bit sooner into the main event than years past. So,
right.
For instance, the loved 100K lavender chips actually enter the tournament at the start of day 5. That's normally reserved for maybe mid day 5, maybe end of day 5, for example, for comparison of years past.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the only other major change, and this is, again, this is really apparent in the first episode, is the pacing.
Right.
Pacing, completely different. I mean, we had mentioned even as far back as 2013, how they were letting certain hands sort of play out, whether it was the Carlos Mortensen King's tank against Jorn Valthaus or other hands in 2014, 2015. But you really feel that editing choice in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, except the difference here is with that hand with Carlos Mortensen, it was the tension of the moment that they were trying to build. Is he going to call or not with the Kings? Versus this is more letting conversations play out for a long period of time. I mean, there's a little bit of letting tanking sessions play out to build tension, but for the most part, it's really just sort of letting the players talk to each other. And we've spoken before in the past about how we like having personality at the table. We like sort of seeing players banter, but here it's a little different in terms of when they select to let those conversations play out or not, and it's kind of mixed for me.
Additionally, every other episode is a bonus length episode. Like I didn't realize this, I guess 6 years ago when I was watching, but watching this, it goes long episode, regular length, long, regular, long, regular. I think these episodes were broadcast in a 2.5 hour block every week. So you had, 1 hour and a half long and an hour long in the ESPN schedule. So I think that's how it worked out, if I recall correctly. And sometimes the episodes you really feel that extra like 24 minutes is just coming from those hands taking an extra like 15% longer each, and it just really bogs down the pacing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel it's really warranted that much. If you have this extra bit of footage that you want to show, I mean, why don't you just turn it into a separate episode? Why do you have to tack it on to the end of this? But I don't even really think if you separated this extra content out and put it in its own episode and added more to it, that it would be that worthwhile. I mean, I really just felt it drag because there's just so much talking, and it just doesn't feel warranted.
And we're going to go over these two players in much detail, but really much like, shows like Survivor, where you have a regular, there's a kind of formula of the season, but then all of a sudden a season like Samoa comes in and Russell Hand steals all the screen time. Will Kassouf and Alex Keating, with their table talk and some table antics, really end up taking the lion's share of the attention. More Kassouf than Keating, to be fair, but
yeah.
But they would, swap in the spell in the featured table for plenty. And because the dynamics of their table talk at the table and how it affects their play, that also adds to the repetitiveness and the pacing issues with this main event. It's funny, actually, I was really down on the first few episodes of this main event, and then as it goes on, it kind of gets better, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny phenomenon. I almost feel like if you had a chart of like my grade for each episode, it's pretty much a plateau up kind of approach. It doesn't really go up and down like it does sometimes, at least up until for this point in the rewatch. So we'll cover that, my thoughts on that going forward, but particularly in the first half, so the first quarter, it really
Mm-hmm.
bugged me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have very mixed feelings about it. I was just sort of thinking, like, why do I have these mixed feelings? Again, I usually find these big talkative players so entertaining. And the thing that I kind of pinpointed is that this is, with Keating specifically, he doesn't have somebody to sort of like pair off against. Like, Helmuth usually has like someone like Dragomir or, somebody else at the table, like talk back at him and give him somebody to work off of. I think that Mike Matusow, he's very funny on his own, but he's funniest when he's arguing with Raymer or he's arguing with Sean Chacon, somebody who can give and take back to him. And Keating just doesn't have that. He does his little antics. He does like the eye thing. He does like, all right, all right, all right. But everyone just kind of like smirks and shrugs it off and nobody gives him anything to work with. Kassouf also has that problem, but as time goes on, Christoforou, who is one of the amateurs, that's the first timers mentioned throughout the show, does actually sort of start to give back to him. And I find those moments the most entertaining with Kassouf, as well as the Stacey Madison hand, which we'll get into. Because there's this give and take and back and forth dynamic that I just feel is more stimulating than just 9 high like a boss. All right, just, regurgitating these lines over and over again.
Oh, and speaking of these sort of catchphrases, we have perhaps one of the most grown eye-worthy parts of this main event is the uses of hashtags.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hashtag the coconuts, hashtag all right, hashtag 9 high, hashtag spin it up, stuff like that. Just really, I'm not a Twitter user, so I obviously don't care for Twitter name drops in my media, but that's also kind of one of those, oh, come on, kids, get on board the poker train here as hashtags. Like, no, it doesn't work for me.
They're trying to force the meme, and it just comes off as very cringy.
And now there's different sort of phases and waves of the Keating and Kassouf table talk, so we'll get into each one. But the social dynamic of each one is unique
Mm-hmm.
on each day of the tournament, but does not always make for enjoyable television.
Yeah.
And so episode 1, let's just dive right in. So episode 1 is late on day 4. So we're already sliding further and further up the tournament from the starting point of the broadcast. So
right, yeah.
Your prior was the start of day 4, post money bubble, obviously late on day 5. I think post dinner break, I think they showed 2 levels of day 4 in this sort of 2-part special of sorts. And so again, they've already played through over 3.5 days of poker, blinds being 8K, 16K, and we get a pretty, stacked, like, blockbuster worthy kind of featured table, actually.
Right.
We get the tournament chip leader at that time, James Opes. That's always good.
Yeah.
2 former champions.
Right.
Greg Raymer, who was, that sort of a big one, the first few, the first winner post the Moneymaker effect. And then a relatively recent winner, Ryan Reese.
Right.
So again, that's pretty cool. And then to top it all off, we also get the cocky, chatty Sean Deeb with a decent stack, and then a first timer with a lot of chips that also a pretty impressive poker resume, Valentin Vornicu, who has 8 circuit rings.
Yeah.
And so that's 5, out of 9, pretty strong of a lineup for a featured table.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, you look at this lineup and you're like, these guys are just going to, this is going to be great. I mean, to be fair there, Reese didn't have too many chips. He didn't have too much to work with. And he's not like a super vocal guy anyway. Greg Raymer's, a lot more sort of down to earth and, isn't super talkative or animated either. I mean, I still enjoyed this feature table. I think there's some good moments, namely from Sean Deeb, who his table presence is just very interesting because he's not nearly as rude as Kassouf or anybody else, but he does have that like kind of like a little snippy, rude side to him, which I just think is interesting.
Well, there's a great moment where he sort of trashes Raymer's poker play, and then Raymer chimes in, "He's leaving me no room besides let's take it outside," which is a pretty good line. And it's kind of funny, the dynamic, Deeb gets a lot of mini needles into the table, and nobody's immune from his range of needle throwing. But so again, the table talk is, it's decent. It's not my favorite table talk iteration in the world, but it's okay. But the problem is the hand selection by the editing.
Yeah.
More focused on hands where they were talking like that than the hands actually being entertaining. So there's a lot of kind of lame 2-bet, all right, 3-bet, and fold kind of hands. Oops, there's a lot of big stack bullying, but not nearly as entertaining big stack bullying as, say, a Kyle Karanen from 2014. It's just kind of
Right.
he re-raises, they fold, okay, moving on. Oh, next hand, maybe Oops loses some back, then he wins some back. There's no narrative there. It's just some pretty weak sauce, poker play on display, and there's no real tension either. No one's really. I mean, the opening hand, Sean Deeb has aces. He busts a player who has queens, but it comes after like 5 minutes long of a hand where he tanks and then calls when on a double paired board. It's just not particularly engaging.
Yeah, it isn't. I mean, the only real thing that hand sets up is this call the clock motif, which will run throughout the rest of the tournament. Everybody's pretty much just calling the clock on everybody else all the time. There's no longer this idea of, wait 8 minutes and then call the clock. You're calling the clock after like 3 minutes, which I have mixed feelings about. I think you should give players time to think about decisions. But on the other hand, yeah, you can move the tournament along too.
And this is also a part of the tournament where you're past the bubble, you're in the final couple hundred players, so you're not min cashing now, and people are trying to accumulate chips as day 4 winds down. So they're going to be a little more impatient. I understand that, but it's all about knowing being aware of what's happening in that hand. If someone's obviously going to fold, okay, whatever. But if it's they're all in, someone puts them all in, and they got to think about that. Give them some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as table 1. Pretty good lineup. Tables 2 and table B, they get shown. We get to see one hand each on both of those tables. So pretty lame, especially when you have a 70-minute episode. So you'd think they'd have the ability to actually show something from those tables. Now Maria Ho is at one table of Kenny Hollart and Rich Zhu, who will be more important later on in history. Table 2 has Melanie Weisner. And now Weisner, it does play a factor in things in episodes to come. So I guess they want to show her in the first episode because otherwise it would just be one of the classic outer table pan around the room. So okay, but I mean, still kind of a wasted opportunity to use those tables. If you're going to have them set up for that year, you might as well have them in the first episode, right?
Right.
Now, to be fair, the table B of Maria Ho does end the episode on a very strong note where she doubling up with ace king against ace is pretty flop, which again is always one of those exciting kind of runouts. But the outer tables had a bit more notable action poker wise, as is often the case when there's not really any table talk. We do see our first glimpses of guys like Griffin Benger, who we know from his pretty horrific day 5 performance on 2014. We see Gail Bowman, Johnny Chan, Kassouf pops in there, Pacioli, Adam Friedman, Jennifer Shahad, Dietrich Fast, Mike Nowinski, one of my favorites of this season. Cliff Josephine pops in there, and so there's some pretty entertaining big pots there. I mean, but again, when it's an outer table hand shown, it's usually a pretty abridged screen of the cards on their back. Let's see what's the flop and turn river, all in pre-flop. So it's only a small fraction of the overall supersized episode, but still, I thought that part of the episode held its weight okay.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, nothing super, super exciting, but we get these little flashes of players who we're going to see a lot later. Nowinski being I don't know how to describe his personality, a little dorky, I suppose. I don't want to be mean to the guy. But standing up with a player that, he calls this guy's shove, and so he stands up with him. Just little things like that just sort of help to build this guy's character a bit. Kassouf doesn't actually talk that much. He calls an all-in with ace-king when one guy had called all-in with queens. Another guy had ace-king of clubs. The one thing to note about is he takes a picture of the, pot for some reason, with his phone. I don't know why. He didn't win the pot. That's kind of an odd moment. Yeah, but we're getting just little bits and pieces of these guys as characters.
I mean, so there's some okay setup with showing the outer tables and some players that'll pop up later. One of the bits that was a little touching was Sean Deeb discussing his grandmother and her unfortunate passing at age 96, who he had bought into the main event in years prior. Right. And again, it's an odd contrast when you kind of have Deeb, the family man, and Deeb, the kind of needle thrower, all over around the table. I mean, whatever. That's what Deeb wants to do. I mean, Phil Hellmuth is still, a grown baby, so I guess Deeb's a lot of latitude in that respect, right?
Ouch! Wow.
But again, the table one action really does drag. I mean, Reese
Yeah.
and Reimer don't really play any memorable hands. I don't have a single bullet point for that table's action poker-wise that really entertained me. They keep that table one for episode 2, which picks up with the action with 281 players left. And there was actually a pretty good hand to start off the episode between Sean Deeb, Vorniku, and James Opes, where Vorniku kind of does the nervous with the nuts, kind of nervous breathing Hollywood trick, and Opes makes a big call on the river for a pretty substantial portion of his chip leading stack, and Vorniku just says, "Thank God," and then of course Deeb says, "It's kind of shitty to say thank God when he calls you." And then Vorniku tries to cover up his exclamation by saying, "Well, I was trying to fix so nervous I became nervous." Like, this is just weird sort of troll logic there, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a weird thing for Deeb to say in that spot. I mean, Vorniku's clearly a little nervous. It's not that bad to say thank God. It's weird.
Now, the weird thing is that this episode is a regular length 46-minute episode, but the first hand doesn't start until 5 minutes into the episode, and then that hand takes 5 minutes. So 10 minutes in, so almost a quarter in, we've seen one hand. And it's really the only, maybe the only notable hand really of the episode, besides maybe one other hand. And maybe you'll disagree with me, but I actually felt that this might have been one of the worst episodes we've covered in this entire podcast so far. It's really up there. It's a nothing episode that it flies in with no impact. The only real narrative drama is that Reese busts at one point. That's really it.
Yeah, I mean, the one hand I liked was between Christoforu and Ho, because we get a sense of Christoforu's personality a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Ho, talks about how confused she is, and Christoforu doesn't back down. He doesn't seem intimidated that Maria Ho is at his table, and he's talking back at her and says, I'll if you pay, I'll show you my cards and stuff like that. So I like that moment.
Mm-hmm.
A couple little lines from Norman Shad. Norman Shad this year, I think, was on point just in terms of all his commentary.
Really? I thought that there was some pretty forced pop culture references more than usual that I didn't like in this year.
No, but I thought when he's commenting on Will Kassouf and all that, I think he's just I think he's really hilarious and Keating. Again, somebody to fend off against and bounce off of. I think that's when he's at his best. You can disagree with me, but he says one line about this guy named Cheater who for some reason gets a segment dedicated to his name. He says it's better to be a cheater in poker than a hanging chad in Florida, which as a political geek I thought was funny, but it's my opinion. It's all good.
I mean, there was one good poker play by Cheater and Jackson where Jackson folds a full house on the river when I think most players probably make that call because they just kind of have to. On table B, table 2 and table B get a little bit more coverage in this episode compared to part 1, which is strange. You'd think that you'd want to spread the wealth more in those tables when you have more time for the episode, but
yeah, to get to the point, yes, this is one of the worst episodes I think by far. I mean, there's just so much wasted time. I mean, it's nice that we get we learn a little bit about Vorniku, we learn a little bit about Christoforu, but there's just not that much to hang your hat on.
Honestly, they might have been better off just starting on day 5 because that's the direction the main event coverage eventually takes in later years, starting on day 5, and it's just some dull stuff. You maybe could have even just had one. There's only one episode.
Yeah.
1 69-minute episode, and it would have been okay, I think. So that's it's a pretty weak start. It's a weak start even compared to past main events where we said this is a pretty slow start.
Yeah, this is the worst. Yeah, it's pretty tough.
But then day 5 rolls around, and this is again where the Keating Kassouf focus really kicks in. They're both shown in the day 4 at various points, but really this is where things pick up for them. With day 5, we have a brand new featured table. Melanie Weisner, 9th in chips to start day 5. Per Linda,
right?
Gail Bowman, Michael Ruan, and Alex Keating joins in the episode on that table partway through. And then on table 2, we got Johnny Chan of Jared Blesnick. And table B, we have Greg Raymer and Keto Pham.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, again, a super length episode, there's just, again, day 5 is such a frustrating rewatch for me because I just kind of naturally root for some of the female players because it'd be good for poker for that to happen. Melanie Weisner gets screwed on the very first hand against Linda. That's what bugs me. She loses 1 million chips, which is about, around a third of her stack when she flops top pair, makes trips, and then runs into Lynn's full house. Yeah. So that's pretty frustrating. It's, a very smooth sailing episode for Linda altogether. Mm-hmm. And then Alex Keating, when he joins the table, he just starts saying, all right, wow, good cards. And it's just not amusing. It's just not funny. It's not witty. It's not, I think humor has to stem from something witty or personal or something. And I have a lot to say about Alex Keating, but I think he's kind of this, I think he's a very fake, nice person.
Yeah.
And exactly. his style of comedy is always at someone else's expense.
Yeah.
Like I crack jokes all the time. It's often at my own expense or at no one's expense. It's, either or. And when you're saying like to Gail Bowman when she wins a hand, where's the rest of that pot? Where's the other 400,000? It's like, that's just not funny. You're just trying to make it. I mean, he does take over the table when he sits down. It's more so, maybe also in episode 4, but in this episode as well, like he sits down, the energy of the whole table shifts. Reminded me of Grinder in a later main event when he did that too. But it's just really I think it's fake niceness. We get a bit about Alex moving to Austin, finding friends, like just randomly walking into their apartment they don't mind, which I don't know. I feel like maybe Alex is a nice guy, but in the poker scene, it's all fake niceness.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's also just very bland. Like, there's no teeth to it. Like, we mentioned it's okay to make jokes at somebody else's expense if you have a rapport with them. Like, whenever Esfandiari and Phil Locke are making fun of each other, it's always funny because they have that rapport with each other. And again, there's this give and take to it. Yeah. But Keating just makes these jokes. Everyone just kind of smiles at him. Like, Weisner, makes a couple jokes about his beard. She turns to a tournament director at one point and says, can we punch other players as, a joke? That's about it.
Yeah, Weisner kind of responds to his talks, and the one thing Keating does do that I thought was mildly amusing was his card tricks, where he does makes a card disappear and then reappear. The reappearing was the good part. You could obviously see him make the card in his arm, but the reappearing was okay. And then Weisner has some pretty funny facial expressions in this sort of two-parter, reacting, and they kind of freeze frame on her face when in reaction to the card trick. So that was okay, but and then Keating has a pretty solid chip stack as day 5 begins, so he does chip up in this episode, which is frustrating when the two women chip down the whole episode. Like Melanie Weisner, we see her in the first hand of day 5. She's not shown in a single hand besides one, and she just folds on the flop the rest of the tournament until she busts out. That's about it. We don't get to see any sort of frustration building or the chipping down or anything. It doesn't make for particularly satisfying viewing. And same for Gail Bowman. She wins the first hand we see her in and then doesn't win another hand the rest of the tournament until besides one double up later on in day 5.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of poker play, not that anyone's playing super horribly or anything. It's not their fault. It's just nothing. There's just nothing really to hang your hat on or talk about. I mean, Linda, does okay, sort of weaving his way in and out here, but nothing super special. I mean, there's nothing. You can't really look at this guy and be like he's a grade A poker player or anything.
Keating definitely got cards. He ends up busting a player when they both flop a set, and then Keating makes a runner flush. There was an amusing Weisner sort of turned her a rail when she sees she folded top pair correctly on the flop. But besides that, the poker play pretty bland. And again, Alex Keating's ramblings will be montaged to death multiple times. If he would say something funny, I mean, or something that wouldn't just be like that jerk character in a comedy that you're supposed to laugh at or root against, something like, give me something.
He's like a character out of a bad poker movie. You can imagine him. The camera just pans over and he's yelling at everybody, and then it cuts and he's lost his whole stack. That would be the joke of that. Yeah, it's just so bland and weird and just
And then Johnny Chan makes a Orient Express move to get himself out of the game when he shoves 8-5 on the button with 20 big blinds and ends up crippling himself down to one ante.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Johnny Chan of all people would do that when you really have a chance to make a deep run in the main event, but it's his right. Unfortunately, Maria Ho gets busted off screen to Valentine Bornicu, which is just a gross editing choice. Like we literally just saw him have this miracle double up on day 4 of Ace King and Aces. At least show us how she busts. I mean,
right.
It kind of makes even showing that table on day 4 kind of pointless.
I know, right? Very strange.
Sean Deeb ends up busting before Raymer does, so it just kind of makes his earlier comments pretty funny. Or Deeb overplays a pocket pair pre-flop and runs into a bigger pair pre-flop. Dane Coleman, our favorite anti-media one-drop winner, has the chip lead or second in chips for this episode, which is very impressive. That this guy who is a heads-up specialist could, effectively translate those skills to the main event, a field full of both pros and amateurs that play very differently. Stacey Madison does get into the spotlight here, running into some rough times, making some couple of really good folds to both Gordon Veo and Will Kassouf. And this is the christening of Kassouf's soon to be reused multiple times line, "How many miles from here to Hollywood?"
Yep.
And again, that's one of his lines I'm more okay with than anything that Keating said, because he's just kind of, at least he's not acting on his hand. He's on someone else's terms, so it's not like he's wasting time in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, the first time these lines come up, they're okay. It's when he just repeats them over and over again, and you can almost just hear like the tinkering in the back of his head, like, I get to put this on a T-shirt and sell this on a store now. Like, he's trying to turn these into catchphrases and memes, and it's just, first time it's fine, 10th time not so much.
Yeah. I thought that table 1 again kind of falls into the repetitive run of very repetitive playing hand.
Yeah.
3-flop Rayos, 3-bet call, check, bet, fold, just some very lame stuff. And again, it was frustrating 6 years ago watching Bowman and Weiss get bluffed over and over again or lose chips, and it was no less frustrating now, especially considering that it's either a hand featuring Keating winning a hand or one of them losing a hand. So not so fun.
Not so fun, though.
But then episode 4 turns into the Kassouf sideshow, where, again, in a regular length episode, we get a lengthy portion dedicated to the infamous Madison Kassouf hand. This is, again, after Madison had made the correct folding top pair to Kassouf's straight flush. Kassouf puts Madison all in with 9 high when he had missed his double gut shot draw, with Madison holding a pair of queens, which was an overpair to the board. And a lot to discuss in this hand. So when we first cut to the hand, actually, it's after Kassouf has made that river bet. So we don't see any of the hand before that.
Right.
And it cuts to her trying to, to Groshovsky's credit, you can kind of see some of what his point was that Madison's trying to weasel a way to make Kassouf's hand dead because of his sort of talking during the hand.
Yeah, I mean, he just, we see it post turn. So Madison makes it 225 with top pair. I mean, it's just this cavalcade of just talk and comments and just going on and on and on after this action that we haven't seen all of. I mean, it's just, we don't know what the context was before. I understand that, but it's just like, it's just too much to be presented too soon without full context in the hand. I mean,
well, also the dealer chimes in saying Kassouf cannot discuss the pot size with the bets, which I think is a rule. I think that actually was correct, but I think the floor man's out of line here in a little bit too. And then when Jack comes in, because this hand's taking a long time, it's causing a lot of stir. Kassouf is told to not talk while she is thinking, and she's talking out loud too. And again, human communication is a two-way street. So if one person talks, you would reasonably expect the other person to respond. And when Kassouf tries to kind of respond to what Madison's saying. He gets told by Jack Effel, "You cannot talk." And then when he's lip is zipped, you start doing this hand motion to refer to his statement of, "If you fold and show, I will show," and he'll go like, and then Jack interprets that as taunting, which I think it's taunting of a mild sort, but not taunting that I would be like all steam ahead. That is immoral or out of line. Now, if a four-man tells you don't do something, whether I'm in the right or wrong, I don't do it. I wouldn't do it just because we're playing for a lot of money. I don't want to do anything and have someone's illogical reaction affect my game. But so Kassouf is wrong to not just listen and maybe discuss it after the hand. So he ends up getting a one-round penalty for his antics, by trying to taunt her. And of course, Kassouf wins the hand when Madison folds, so he's pretty happy anyway. The other out of line player is Mitch Garshovsky, because he calls the clock on Madison. And the table Veo chimes in too, that she's a lot's going on here, and she has to a lot. And then the table kind of talks about the hand afterwards, where it's kind of like acknowledging the situation. Garshovsky was relatively new to the table at that time, and the antics of Kassouf kind of warrant maybe giving her some more time also. So And what are your thoughts? Who was in the right? Who was in the wrong there?
Well, again, we don't have the full context on the hand, so we can't say, how long everything was. Law or Norm don't mention how long the hand had been going on for. At least I didn't take a note of it if they did. I mean, I wouldn't have called the clock there if I were him. I would have, recognized the situation. But on the other hand, like all the other players getting angry at him, I think was a little excessive. Again, he's new to the table. He doesn't quite know the dynamic is. He's not a super experienced player either. I think you can kind of just back off of him there. Mm-hmm. You should all be angry with Kassouf, and they are all angry with Kassouf. I think they're just sort of trying to vent their anger at Kassouf by yelling at this guy because Kassouf had left the table. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's just sort of in the wrong there. Beside Madison, and Madison didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and this incident is the spark of a big poker fire to come in the days to come, especially involving Veo being a first-hand witness to this entire hand. And because Madison's now, short stacked after losing that hand, she ends up busting right afterwards of aces against King Jack. Kassouf, of course, still on penalty while this is happening, so when he sits down, she sees that she's gone. He's kind of like, And so this is kind of the first quarter of the episode. And the action, the cameras will return over to Kassouf later when he does some more of his table talk, particularly with how he likes to put his chips in, like the line, "What's up for score in darts? 180." And then he starts cutting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's 345K. And a little karma kind of takes place when he ends up getting called by Tony Gregg of King High.
Yep.
King High being good. So, of course, Kassouf has to say, first flip flop of the day. First flop of the day. Even though literally the whole table saw he bluffed Madison of 9 high. So, again, that was definitely the highlight of the episode for me.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we call it the highlighting episode. It takes so much time, so much, just all of the Kassouf talk, the hand with Madison busting. Madison gets an interview with the camera after the fact where she seems to take it well and be appreciative of her performance. And she did get her revenge on Will Kassouf in a grudge match after the fact. So that was nice. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we also get clips of Kassouf talking with Jack Effel about it. And Jack Effel almost kind of seems to laugh it off with him, which I thought was kind of interesting. We're not going to really see that later on in the tournament. Yeah, and then another player at the table busts, and she has a comment about we have a player that's putting other players on tilts very easily. There's just so much talk and time spent on that. And yeah, it's a big hand and it's entertaining and all that, but everything else just feels so thin compared to it. I mean, nothing really happens that's interesting to talk about.
I'll disagree on one note. One being a couple of the show one card showing 4 hands on table 1. So Jamasi accidentally grabs the wrong chip when he raise, and then he ends up winning the hand. He shows a 4 in his hand doing that. And then the next hand used to be a YouTube video called Alex Keating Outplays Per Linda, where Keating makes this kind of crazy play of 4 deuce suited, where he bets $1 million into 600,000 on the turn. after floating on the flop of a 4 high, and
Yeah.
ended up showing a 4. And again, it's a pretty good play, and I that was maybe the one Alex Keating table talk moment that I was okay with, because at least it was against the person he was in the hand with, and it's a pretty, a 4 high bluff is usually pretty entertaining too. So I was okay with that, and he gets limited to fold 2 jacks on a king 10-10-5 board, so
Yeah.
good for Alex, I guess. But again, he risked 1 million chips to win back like 300,000. Was it worth it? I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. And so again, I found this episode to be the best of 2016 so far. Not saying all that much. I did enjoy the Kassouf part of this episode.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for the later Kassouf episodes in day 5, but and we got a little bit more smooth sailing poker play by Nowinski on table 2. Nowinski, excuse me, he hits 8.7 million, which is 200 and something big blinds, 220 big blinds, pretty strong. And we do learn a little bit more about Michael Ruan, who has a brother who I saw both him and his brother in Vegas last year, so that was kind of cool again to see that kind of on the screen.
And we see Kui win set over set, losing a bunch of chips and being reduced down, but he does sneak his way in there for a moment.
Yeah, so that's our our winner watch. He appears in episode 4, so better than the standard set by Peter Reesky at least. So.
Yep, that's true.
And as so often they like to do, we have a division of the feature table switching entirely for halfway point in the edit for the tournament. So on day 5, part 3 for episode 5, we get from the Keating show to the Kassouf show. Kassouf chipping up and now third in chips on the leaderboard as the episode begins, and he'll actually ascend to the chip lead later on in the episode.
Right.
Also at his table is Jason Less, Gordon Veo, Garshovsky, Greg, and Valentin Varnick, who joins in later in the episode. And again, this is another example of just very boring hand selection by the edits. Again, more just focusing on anything that involves Kassouf's antics. Now the table does get a bit more lively as the episode goes on, but I kind of made a list of all the Kassoufisms on display, being slow to act, whether he's playing a hand or folding, lots of 3-betting, lots of betting using his smaller chips first, playing a lot of hands against Jason Less and Tony Gregg. He wins the very first 3 hands of the episode, just kind of playing a bunch of suited hands.
Right.
And it's those kind of hands where it goes 2-bet, 3-bet, call, check, bet, fold, or 2-bet, 3-bet, fold, just not particularly dynamic or memorable hands.
Right, yeah.
That really drags down a lot of this episode for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing in terms, I mean, he's doing fine, Kassouf, but, I can't really say anything about his play in terms of, oh, he makes crazy bluffs, or, oh, he does something cool. He just, just finds spots here and there.
Yeah. And he actually plays, pretty solid as far, losing the minimum, winning the maximum, checking when he's behind, betting when he can get a fold. So that's, that's solid. But again, when you're kind of rooting against him, which I was when I was originally watching this, it just made for really frustrating viewing, similar to Keating winning and everybody else I was rooting for losing. Just you want to be able to root for who's, on film, and I didn't get the vibe from that. And the outer table is a bit more exciting than the table 1 action. We do lose some notable players. Raymer busts. Melanie Weisner busts with ace king against 5-3 suited on the river. Jared Blesnik has a very Hellmuth-esque excitement to turn over his cards when he makes quads against Wojciech Rudziska's full house.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And unfortunately, Gail Bowman ends up as the last woman standing. Pretty much, it seemed like she was just folding her way to the last woman standing. She just did not win a hand all of day 5, and then she doubles up her micro stack on a 2-outer on the river before busting to Keating of all people. So she ends up again being a 2-time holder of the Last Woman Standing award with Maria Ho, I think, also on that list of her. But again, kind of frustrating to watch that.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe she didn't just win any hands, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her and have her story built a bit better.
Yeah. And then I guess the only other side note that I found kind of amusing was a rock, paper, scissors showdown over a loose chip at the
Right.
table on table 2 of Benjer and his neighbor, which you don't see, I've never seen before. I never see a chip being caught between 2 stacks, not knowing who it belongs to, and so they do Rochambeau, but they like are very like clear, like all right, on Rochambeau, on 2 3, and then they do it. So it's again a funny little micro moment for me too, but. Otherwise, a pretty below average episode for me, despite some disappointing bust outs on the other tables.
Yeah, I mean, Watson's reaction to getting quads was funny. Mitch Watson being one of the first timers. We haven't spoken about the first timer segment at all, by the way, if you noticed that.
That's true.
It is in this season. Vorniku is one of the first timers, and this guy, Mitch Watson, who's this Australian teacher. What's that?
Mike Nowitzki also being in that realm of players, and I like this incorporation of first timers a bit better than 2015, but less than 2014.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean,
that sounds totally nerdy. Like I like it more than that season, but less than this season. But that is it. It lies somewhere in the middle, and Vorniku is definitely is kind of he's arguably the C character. If you have Kassouf and Keating in the 1 and 2 spot, he's arguably the third for the most part. But again, the focus of the edit is probably of the tables 1, 2, and B. It's really like 85%, maybe more, of table 1, and just very little of table 2 and table B for all these episodes so far.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't. I mean, it's so hard to talk about the other tables because it's Will Kassouf's show. We get a little bit of Blesnik here and there. Tony Gregg sort of hyped up as being one of the better players who was making a deep run. But on the other hand, I mean, you have Cliff Josephine, who does appear in this episode doubling up, and a couple other players who are pretty top professionals. So it's kind of weird they're hyping up Gregg a little bit more just because I guess he's at Kassouf's table, I suppose. Yeah. But it's just kind of odd how they're treating these other players while also hyping up Kassouf so much.
Yeah, and then the last portion of day 6 is another very mediocre episode, if you ask me. We get a little bit more Vorniku in the table 1, maybe arguably less Kassouf, and more Vorniku for this episode. Mm-hmm. Nothing really I had to note about tables 2 and table B. It just seemed like it was very unmemorable. Although there was the 2015 Bubble Boy shown on table 2, so that's kind of a fun little thing. We saw Kia Hamadani in 2010 make the money after being Bubble Boy in 2009. So again, it's kind of cool to see that it's not just a throwaway rebuy into the tournament. You actually can do something with that second chance. But he's not really given much more than just a small little mention here and there. Now the one thing I kind of like though is that Kassouf and the table kind of explain Kassouf's side of the story of that infamous Madison hand. Like they kind of explain, the other side of the coin. I mean, the original edit definitely is more sympathetic to Madison, but I kind of liked. It's always fun when like someone who's wrong explains why they did what they did that was wrong, whether you agree with them or not. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is funny.
And then the outer tables, Keating, makes some correct folding, folding a set to avoid busting. And then Brian Pacioli, who we'll talk about plenty in 2017. Right. He gave us perhaps one of the most depressing, like downbeat interviews of all time after busting out, where he just kind of says, had no hands. But the thing is, he still had like half of his chips from when he began day 5 when he busted. And really, he didn't have to play that last hand as strong as he did. He had 2.7 million chips. Yeah. Along with 30K, 60K. That's still good for 45 big blinds. It's not like you're short stacked. And when you can go an entire day 5 in the chip lead and still have half of that chips left over before, or even more than half, a little bit over half, really. You think they have like 5 million chips. That is not good, but it's not a worst case scenario by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, I mean it's a very sullen interview. I mean, there's no Kara Scott or anything. He's just like standing there with his backpack on, then he just walks away. Like it's very sad. it is interesting how you bring up, we'll see more of him in 2017. There's a lot of players who make recurring appearances in 2017 and 2018. Obviously, we're going to see Moran and Howard in 2017, also Johnson in 2018. It is kind of interesting how these, this year sort of spawns sequel years.
Especially since a lot of our sort of classic, old school players aren't in this main event at all.
Right.
Besides, I guess, Raymer. It's nice to have some new faces that will actually leave an impact and be relevant going forward. But overall, it was just a very frustrating batch of day 5 episodes for me.
Yeah, me too.
We had, a ridiculous proportion of the Brit and the Beard, I call them. The Brit and the Beard garnering all the camera time, and a lot of their because of the nature of table talk. We're going to discuss this after we cover the recap. It really drags down the pacing, and it baits the editors to focus on hands that are just not worthy of that much time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I'm with you.
And again, not having Gail Bowman or Wisner win a single hand despite being at the picture table. Wow, well, Bowman wins one hand. Wins, I guess, 1 and 2 hands, but really just frustrating to watch.
It's heartbreaking.
And so I guess we'll cover the first half of day 6 for this look back here. So day 6, part 1 is a 69-minute episode of 80 players left. Jerry Wong in the chip lead.
Right, yeah.
And at the feature table, once again, Kassouf is back. So they, instead of alternating it around, they have him right back in there, along with Kenny Hollart, Christoforu, Hakeem, Kakwan Lau, and one of the most unusual, funny pre-bust-out conversations, then busted out, Jason McConnon.
Right.
In what I like to call cheat sheet gates.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, what was it? It's hand rankings, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like how many big blinds, probably, and what hands to shove. And again, he had like 25 big blinds, so I guess it's relevant there. But you can't have your cell phone at the table.
Right.
And notes. I mean, for all the director knows that you might have like invisible ink of like special glasses, so it has like notes on players. So I guess it's. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know why he has to have the cheat sheet on him if he can't just glance it, put it in his pocket. Was he going to forget and he has to recheck it in the middle of the hand? I don't understand.
I don't understand it either, but I say let him have the cheat sheet. I mean, what's the problem, really? If you're a better player than him, you're going to beat him. I mean, it's very strange.
I felt that this was a good usage of the 2016 editing style at the very least, because it got us some table talk or table dynamic, and then a direct impact on the very next hand. And so dedicating a couple extra minutes to that made the ultimate play of the hand a bit more enjoyable.
Yeah,
this is kind of the turning point for me of this main event, where it goes from monotonous, dull, slow to a little bit more complete and enjoyable. So, I mean, this is a long episode. I think it would have benefited from being, again, a regular length one. But we do get a much better vibe of all 3 of the featured tables here. Mm-hmm. Again, some more small, dumb Alex Keating chatter on table 2, where he's like, I know you're scared money. I know you're folding. It's like, dude, just take the chips and shut up. Like, come on.
I know, right?
You're not going to play worse because you're an ass. And then Kassouf does get a little kind of the Brit back and forth with Christoforu, where they sort of chat it up, and it's kind of like half hostile, half like friendly. It's a weird mix of their back and forth. Because, it's your fellow countrymen, so you're going to have some brotherly rooting interest in that guy, I guess, right? But again, they'll be a bit more heated talking to each other a little bit later in day 6.
Of course, yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, now that Keating has somebody Kassouf has somebody to pair off against, there's a funnier dynamic there because he can go back and forth with each other versus just parroting lines earlier. No one was giving him anything.
Mm-hmm. There's some, Kassouf does the infamous line that he'll reuse. Well, a big pot or a small pot. That's the same line he used against Mesa Selps in 2013 on the EPT episode. And then he chimes in, if you don't talk, I'm going to have to raise you, which we'll hear again against Benger. And that table talk does garner him 3 million chips because he gets kings, gets jacks to go all in, And the flop even comes out 4 Jack King, so they both would have made sit over sit. So it wouldn't have mattered. But
Right.
that again completes, Kassouf's continued chip rise at that table. Jared Blesnik on table B, he does a kind of funny little thing where he mentions Johnny Chan's bust outs, where he says, well, Chan, what's he doing with like 20 big blinds? He goes crazy on the button of 8-5 is. It's kind of funny this, because it's kind of old news by then, it's day 6, so you'd think that it'd be, old news by then.
Blesnik, I think, takes the cake for me thus far, just as like my like player of the year. Like he's just so like, he has this like weird New York like blunt attitude to him, and it's just so funny. I think my favorite line is in this like little interview segment he does. He just goes, honestly, I don't like a lot of the people involved in poker, like just how blunt he is, and he just starts talking about how they're all like egotistical and you're only in for it themselves. Like, well, look at yourself in the mirror, buddy. Like, come on, man. He's hilarious.
I totally agree. Another point for this episode is that I think we get a pretty solid idea of what Kassouf's poker game is.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just felt a stronger understanding of how he plays. He plays a lot of suited, low cards, but he avoids, the big bet if he's not sure about his opponent's hands. He's trying to avoid playing the biggest of big pots, but he's not afraid to bluff in the right spot too. So, he definitely has, some very solid skills and, has runs into tables that he can dominate for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
This episode does have the introduction of those giant 500K chips, again much earlier than 2015, which I think that was not even until day 7 actually. So a big change up there. Once again, we get some more flashbacks, this time though of the sort of major players of the table talk montage of 2014, 2015, and 2016. So we show the same clips over and over again. Again, kind of that filler-ish sort of type bit when you have a extra length episode. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm the biggest fan of that kind of montage, but nonetheless, they did use it.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned in the past how you don't like the flashbacks. I really felt them in this season. Like they just kept repeating the Stacey Madison stuff over and over again. And, they would have like as a bumper before the break or after the break, another line from Will, something like that. I really just felt it over and over again. It was so repetitive.
On the outer tables, actually not super memorable. I mean, Dane Coleman gets one outed by Tony Bracey to end up losing a big pot.
Yeah.
Berlinda runs into some bad luck and back-to-back sort of shown hands, so he ends up busting despite, being, near the chip lead for a lot of day 5. And so, again, one of those guys that we had seen earlier going away. Mike Shin kind of, enters a little more to the spotlight, being one of the first timers and being on the outer tables.
Mm-hmm.
A day 7 player. And we learned about Kassouf taking a break from law to play poker. And, he's still very successful in poker to this day. He's been playing in the Irish Open in 2021-22 and making a pretty solid run of it there. So he's not slowing down on the poker scene by any means nowadays. And again, I thought this could have been a solid 46-minute episode, but the extra half hour kind of sours it a little bit. So still not a bad episode, still better than most of the earlier ones this season, but could have been better.
I'm with you, absolutely.
And then the last episode of this first half is the second part of day 6, episode 8, starting with 63 players left. They'll play down to 51. Again, the same main tables. Some, pretty big hands. Qui Win does bluff Will Kassouf. He joins the table with 8 high on his first hand at the table. That's always a fun way to get the blood flowing. Christopher, who supposedly does not tilt, does kind of start steaming against Kassouf, saying "shut up" in this sort of in his accent. Always kind of funny.
Right. Yeah.
Again, no love for his fellow Brit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kassouf and Kakwan Lau again square off a couple of times, and Kassouf gets the better of Kakwan Lau with another 9 high bluff. With it's a technically 9 high hand on a double paired board, and then another big hand where Kakwan Lau. It just always seems like Kassouf's table talk was successful in getting that one extra bet, that one extra float. So the pots weren't ginormous, but they were medium to medium large, and he was able to get that one extra bet, especially on day 7. This will be apparent when we cover day 7.
Right. Yeah.
But Coquelin Lau makes an extra call of ace high that maybe, you shouldn't be doing that. And then that allows Kassouf to hit 14 million chips.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. I mean, his speech play is definitely working, even though he does lose to Qui Wen here and there. I mean, he plays a solid game. I mean, there's no dispute of that. I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of that sort of cautious player and a little bit less of this just like egotistical, arrogant guy who just keeps parroting these lines. I mean, you have to have a mix of that in the edit.
I agree. And then the funny thing, this is kind of something that'll be a problem of pro analysis, which did return in this main event, by the way, with the same 2, Locke and Esfandiari. Esfandiari
Right.
doesn't really analyze anything in the hand that they cover for this pro analysis. And that kind of brings back to why I even liked having Locke and Esfandiari for pro analysis compared to, the early, 2011 days of the pro analysis, when they don't actually talk about the hand. They just sort of say some like poker term or something and then just kind of riff from there. They don't actually address the play of the hand. This is kind of another example of that popping in.
Right, exactly.
But I did feel the tension of the tournament a bit more in the players, and that obviously will continue to escalate as the game winds down, as the tables shrink and whatnot. It was definitely a less annoying iteration of a Kassouf episode.
Right.
Because there's a bit more focus on his poker play and his success at that, and even when he did talk, it wasn't always it was at less of the detriment to the audience of the hand taking a lot longer than it should have. So that was a benefit. Keating does chime in with his scared money comment when he mixed a 3-bet with 3 deuce against ace jack to fold, but Keating doesn't really kind of plateaus. His stock doesn't really rise too much at this point in time. He's kind of on that 5 million mark for a lot of day 5.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So he's kind of level, but still again relevant. But again, it's more about the Kassouf show than the Keating show. Really, peak Keating is day 5. Day 6, he'll have some focus, but not as much as day 5.
Yeah, I mean, really not that much from Keating at all. Yeah, I mean, it's Kassouf's show from here on out. Keating's not going to last very much longer in the tournament, but what else is there to say at this point? I mean, we can say for the upteenth time, it's a little annoying, it's a little grating, it's a little bland. I mean, we'd just be repeating ourselves.
Yeah. I agree, but again, day 6 definitely getting off on a stronger note than days 4 and 5. So again, trending up, if you ask me. I think that's always important as the main event progresses in the episodes. And so again, it's not a great start to this main event. I mean, we do get a pretty strong taste of new guys like Nowinski, and we see a lot of the final tablists, showing, Veo is in there, Hallart, and so on. So that's helpful, but not my favorite back-to-back episodes. The back half, I think, will be way better.
Yeah, me too.
Especially day 7, part 1. But we'll get there. So I think, but again, I think the biggest difference between what makes Kassouf a bit more entertaining than Keating is Kassouf. I think he's coming from a good place still. I mean, he often will talk to the directors like, "I'm a nice guy. I'm not like that. I'm not trying to do this. I'm not about that." And I kind of believe him, like, to a certain extent. Whereas with Keating, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he kind of gets away with it, which bugs me, because Kassouf doesn't get away with it. It's when there's some comeuppance for the villain of sorts, it's easier to be okay with the story as a whole. Whereas when the guy kind of gets enabled the whole time, like table 5 was like, they were, even Melanie Weiser was kind of eating up a little bit. Linda was tolerating it. The table was kind of permissive with it. So Keating bad, Kassouf better for me.
I mean, I've said my piece before that I feel like what makes Kassouf a little more tolerable is that other players are giving it back to him. Keating just, he's just it just comes off as bland to me. There's just not that much to, really be excited about. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the edit balance, I mean, Nowinski gets some moments in there. We learn a little bit about his personality. We get a little bit about Ruan. We get a little bit about Benjer, a little bit about Josephine here and there. But, by this point, 8 episodes in of the November 9, I mean, we really, Pons hasn't shown up at all. We don't know anything about him.
A little bit of Pons. He got lucky in a hand against Coquelin Lau double up, and episode 8. But yeah, for the most part, because there's such a big focus on Keating and Kassouf, we've seen player like Quewin, making a bluff here against Kassouf, but we don't know them personally. Maybe Veo a little bit because he was involved in the Kassouf events more than the others. But yeah, it's definitely to the detriment of learning more about the final table, especially since this is the final time we'll have the number 9 in the first place. So you'd like to at least honor that tradition by maintaining that sort of focus of setting up these stories for the ending.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will say, if I was at a poker table, I would actually be okay if Kassouf was at my table.
Yeah,
I'd be entertained by it. If Keating was there, I'd be annoyed. I'd probably try to like play back at him, but like in a more positive way, like sort of making jokes at his expense and my expense, like at the same time. So that way, it's not just me being like a jerk to him, but like I'm trying to like say, man, this is how you could be entertaining to the table and not be that sort of that like selfish jerk that you're being.
Okay, sure. Give that a try.
Yeah, you already have the beard going, so you would kind of bond over the beard thing too. You'd be like, yeah, your beard's better than mine, but I make it look cool or something. You try to.
Ooh, wow.
I don't know, something.
Yeah, I mean, if Kassouf were at the table, yeah, I wouldn't mind it because it's just something different, and I think it would be funny when he's at the table with you, and you just got to get to see him play. And again, just try to like pair off against him and try to tilt him, because he can get tilted, so,
Yes, and, if you took some of your hair off the top of your head and put it on your chin, you look kind of like Alex Keating a little bit. I'm just saying.
You look at that. Yeah, close enough, right? Yeah.
There's a thumbnail right there. Thumbnail, Alex Keating. Now, it's quite possible that it's just maybe Keating had a plan. He wants to be that sort of half likable jerk at the table to kind of get people to play back at him poker wise. But maybe he's grown from the experience. I doubt it, but maybe he has. So again, if he wants to come on this show anytime and debate table talk with us, be happy to have it. But I'm not a fan. Sorry, Keating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like if you have a slice of pizza with him, he seems like a fine guy. But yeah, it just doesn't rub off the wrong way. It doesn't rub off the right way.
Yeah. And again, the camera adds 10 pounds. Maybe it adds 10 shades of evil. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Evil's a strong word. I mean, it's not like he's killing people. But as like a poker character, he's a villain. And he's that jerk character, that jerk boyfriend character that the protagonists can't get away from when you want them to. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that kind of concludes our look back on the first half of this kind of watered down, stretched out, main event. We'll obviously cover part 2 next time, but I know you wanted to tell me about your Mind Sport Olympiad events. So tell me, how did it go?
Yeah, so the Mind Sports Olympiad is underway, as I mentioned before. So back on the 15th was the 5-card draw event pot limit. So I'm not familiar at all with 5-card draw. I've done a little bit of playoffs. I don't know about you, Ben, but like I've barely played the game. I don't really understand how it works. I kind of just get dealt 2 pair and I try to just play that and hope for the best. So how the tournament worked was 10-minute levels, and we started off with 10,000 chips each with I think the blinds were 150. So it was very, very deep to start off the tournament. I lost a hand early on, and then I just started chipping down to like 7K after like 30 minutes or so. Late large only lasted 10 minutes, by the way. So if you're ever playing one of these events, you got to get on it right away. But eventually what I able to start doing was I would just raise and take the blinds and antes and just keep doing that over and over again. And then I managed to get Delta straight once. And so I won a bunch of chips off of that. And then I got a boat, won a bunch of chips off of that. So I eventually grew my stack up to about 60K. And then this was over the matter of about, I was raising and taking it for about 45 minutes. So again, 10-minute level. So we're playing for a very long period of time. And then I was eventually able to get to 60K about 2 hours in. And then, I just kind of hovered between 30K and 60K for a while. The money was, I think, 20 players. This was about, I think, 160 players in the tournament, something like that. And then, when we got down to 2 tables, I just couldn't really get anything going. We had one player that was sitting out who busted early, so we were 5-handed pretty quickly, and then I just couldn't really get anything going after that. I think I went all in with some some like one pair hand, and some guy had a better one pair hand and beat me. But I finished in 10th place. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, you know, I got lucky with the straight and with the boat. I managed to win some hands with 2 pair and trips and stuff like that, but I really don't have 5-card drawdown. Still, 10th place is very good out of, I think it was 146 players or something like that. I wasn't able to play. There was a Turbo Hold'em event that was on Saturday. I wasn't able to play that due to a family thing. But yesterday I played the 7-card stud event. This was just 7-card stud, not high-low, just high. So again, same deal. We were very deep stacked to start the tournament. And within 10 minutes, a guy at my table just was going effing crazy. He was up to like 25K by the end of the first level. Like he had been taking chips from everybody, including myself. And I'm just sitting there and I'm fuming because it's like I play so tight and this guy's playing any 3 cards. And then there was one hand with a different player where I had a straight and he kept raising and I kept raising over him thinking like I have the best hand. Turns out he had a boat. So down to like 2,900 chips with 20 minutes into the tournament. So it's like, I'm gonna bust soon. And I'm just like fuming that this guy keeps raising and he's up to like 30K now. And I said to myself, I'm like, Sam, and you just get like a pair of queens, probably a pair of queens against this guy who's going crazy is probably good enough because he's playing any 3 cards. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I got a pair of queens. This guy keeps raising me, eventually puts me all in. There was a 3rd player in the hand as well. I got 2 pair, and that was good enough for me to triple up. So I was up to 7K. And then the same thing happened a couple minutes later. I got a premium hand, and I managed to get 4K off of the crazy guy, and so I was up to 11K. And then I just hovered around there, and sure enough, the guy went up to 30K, and then just went straight down over the course of 10 minutes. It was so satisfying. He busted. So I had like 11K, okay. And then I just sort of grew my stack from there over the next hour or so. You know, just whenever I get like aces or kings or something, I would just be able to win some chips. So I was up to 30 or 40K or so. And we're down to, it was 36 players left. So it's 8 people per table. So, you know, final 5 tables, 20 people make the money. So I get aces and I move to this, like I'm just moved to this table. This is the 3rd hand at this table. And this guy starts going crazy. Like he's raising me, I'm raising him, he's raising me again. I call and I'm like, what the heck do I do? Like if he has trips, he has trips. And then I get like, I think a king was 4th street. It was like ace, ace, 6. And so I get a king. So I'm like, okay. He keeps betting like crazy. I'm like, I've got a pair of aces. I just got to roll with this. 5th street gives me an ace, so I have trips. I keep betting. He keeps raising me. It's like, you know, we're so deep stacked. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, what could he have? But I have trips, so I just got to keep going. 6th street gives me a boat, so I'm like, all right, I don't even have to worry now. I keep betting. He keeps raising me. There's another guy in the hand, and he's calling too. Like, it was so crazy. So 7th street, you know, is some brick, but I have a boat. So he puts me all in. I call. He had like king eye. Just going absolutely crazy. I had a boat. So I have 96,000 in chips. I'm the chip leader with 35 left. Like, it was crazy. I'm like just sitting there like, what the hell just happened? And then I hovered around there for a little bit, managed to grow my stack up to about 120,000. And so when we were at the money, I was myself at like 120K, and then like 1 or 2 other players about the same chip stack as me. So, you know, everything was going fine. And then this guy who had 40K went all in and, you know, raising war. And then I called him. I had like aces and a flush draw. He turned over trips. I improved to aces up, but I couldn't improve after that. So I would drop down to 80K, which is still good at that point. It was 2 tables left. So, you know, I just couldn't really get anything going after that. I managed to win a couple small pots. When we were 9-handed with, you know, the final 8 making the final table, I said to myself, I'm going to be busting in 9th. But luckily, some guy busted before me, so I entered the final table, actually 7th in chips. I just managed to get there. And then we played at the final table for like 15 minutes. Couldn't really get anything going. I finally went all in when I had a pair of 2s. But this guy hit 7th street, hit a pair on me, so I busted, you know, 1 pair to 1 pair. 8th place out of, I think, like 150 or something like that. So still a good run. I don't know where I'm at in terms of the overall rankings. So each event is a medal event, And then if you're the overall like champion of poker, of the different poker events, you get a medal as well. Kind of like the WSOP Player of the Year. There's sort of a point system based on that. I don't know where exactly I am in the ranking system. I'm not checking it because I did this in 2020. I got 5th place in 2020, which is still pretty good. But at one point I was in 2nd, and I remember looking at the rankings and being like, I'm in 2nd place. I'm going to win this thing. And then, of course, I didn't. So I did the same thing in last year, too. I was at one point in 4th place. And I'm like, I'm in 4th place. I'm going to win this whole thing. And then I wound up getting like 36th or something. So I'm not going to check the rankings and get my hopes up or anything. Look, I got very lucky. I don't know what that guy was thinking when I had the boat. But, yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing okay. These guys tend to play a little bit tighter than I think the average Pokerstars players are, even though some guys are fairly aggro, but for the most part, the better players are playing a little bit tighter. So I'm trying to exploit that a bit, but it's difficult because I'm very tight as well. And it's hard to exploit other people. And then, I mean, the next event, there isn't one today. There's also a bunch of other events, too, if you're interested. There's chess events. I think there's a Scrabble event. Yeah, that's on the 23rd, so that's 2 days from now. The next event is 6+ Texas Hold'em, which is on the 26th. Another game I have absolutely no experience in.
6+ Texas Hold'em?
Huh?
6+?
6+, yeah.
Then it's like 6 max or something?
Oh, I said 6+, sorry. I meant 6.
No, but I think like maybe that's just how many players at the table or something. I don't know.
No, 6+, how that works is they take out all the 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s.
Like short deck.
Yeah, short deck, yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it. I mean, I'll play that event. I'll try to play all these. Yeah. Heads Up Omaha is the event after that on Thursday.
I'd be good at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think I'm doing okay. I mean, obviously, I'm getting lucky, getting dealt boats and stuff. But yeah, I mean, play a little tighter is how they're doing, and then just try to get into the tournament. Try to just get as many chips as you can because late reg ends so soon. So
yeah, okay. Well, it's good to know that you're having some success at the MSO. And, so good luck for you going forward. And, hey, if you can take it down for the podcast, that'd be amazing.
That would be nice, yeah.
Title. But obviously, if anybody listening here is entering the Minds for Olympiad, be on the lookout to look up for Sam, East Coast Sam and Pokerstars. I've been trying to get on, but my computer is weird, so I can't play probably. But that's all right. And obviously, if you guys have any thoughts, comments, requests for our podcast. We're getting into more and more recent main events, so it might be a bit more fresh in our casual listeners' brains as far as the content we're discussing. So obviously, let us know if you want. We're on, I post these on Reddit, YouTube, 2+2, Facebook. Put a post for this podcast episode. So contact us however you can.
Yeah, let us know if you have, anything that you'd like to see on the show, any suggestions. We're always looking for feedback. If you want our intros to just be me reading ingredients all the time, we can do that too. I know that was very popular last time.
We got torn apart on Reddit for the introduction last time because I think it was just too long. I think that was the main problem. That's why I cut mine short today. But I don't know. I thought it was fine.
Thanks.
But anyway, we'll see you guys next time where we conclude the Keating and Kassouf chapters of this main event, and we finally get some time for our number 9ers to really shine, including Qui Win, Gordon Veo, Chris Josephy, who will be the final 3. Spoiler alert. And we'll see you guys next time. Yeah, probably pretty soon. We're already pretty far into the rewatch, so we'll probably be.
Yeah. I've already watched a couple this year. I have to watch day 7. So
yeah, same. So anyway, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care.